Lord has it, my father once wrestled a black bear in Baluchistan with his bare hands. If the story had been about anyone else, it would have been dismissed as a laugh, that Afghan tendency to exaggerate, sadly, almost a national affliction. If someone bragged that his son was a doctor, chances were the kid had once passed a biology test in high school. But no one ever doubted the veracity of any story about Papa. And if they did, well, Baba did have those 3 parallel scars coursing a jagged path down his back. I have imagined Baba wrestling match countless times, even dream about it, and in those dreams, I can never tell Baba from the beer.
It was Rahim Khan who was first referred to him as what eventually became Baba's famous nickname, Tupanagha or Mr. Hurricane. It was an apt enough nickname. My father was force of nature, a towering Pashtun specimen with a thick beard, a wayward crop of curly brown hair as unruly as the man himself. Hands that looked capable of uprooting a willow tree in a black glare that would drop the devil to his knees begging for mercy, as Rahim Khan used to say. As at parties, when all 6'5" of him thundered into the room, attention shifted to him like sunflowers turning to the sun.
Baba was impossible to ignore even in his sleep. I used to bury cotton wisp in my ears, pull the blanket over my head, and still the sounds of Baba snoring, so much like a crawling truck engine, penetrated the walls. And my room was across the hall from Baba's bedroom. How my mother ever imagined to sleep in the same room as him is a mystery to me. It's on the long list of things I would have asked my mother if I had ever met her.
In the late 1960s, when I was 5 or 6, Baba decided to build an orphanage. I heard the story through Rahim Khan. He told me Baba had drawn the blueprints himself despite the fact that he'd had no architectural experience at all. Skeptics had urged him to stop his foolishness and hire an architect. Of course, Baba refused, and everyone shook their heads in dismay at his obstinate ways. Then Baba succeeded, and everyone shook their heads in awe at his triumphant ways. Baba paid for the construction of this 2-story orphanage just off the main strip of Jade, May 1, south of the Cabo River, with his own money. Rahim Khan told me Baba had personally funded the entire project, paying for the engineers, electricians, plumbers, and laborers, not to mention the city officials whose mustaches needed oiling.
The water was a deep blue and sunlight glittered on its looking-glass clear surface. On Fridays, the lake was bustling with families out for a day in the sun. But it was midweek and there was only Baba and me, us and a couple of long-haired bearded tourist hippies. I heard them cold. They were sitting on the dock, feet dangling in the water, fishing poles in the hand. I asked Baba why they grow their hair long, but Baba grunted, didn't answer. He was preparing his speech for the next day, flipping through a havoc of handwritten pages, making notes here and there with a pencil. I bit into my egg and asked Baba if it was true what a boy in school had told me, that if you ate a piece of eggshell, you had to peel it out. Baba grunted again.
We sat at the picnic table on the banks of the lake, just Baba and me, eating boiled eggs with kofta sandwiches, meatballs, and pickles wrapped in naan.
The water was a deep blue and sunlight glittered on its looking-glass clear surface. On Fridays, the lake was bustling with families out for a day in the sun. But it was midweek and there was only Baba and me, us and a couple of long-haired bearded tourist hippies. I heard them cold. They were sitting on the dock, feet dangling in the water, fishing poles in the hand. I asked Baba why they grow their hair long, but Baba grunted, didn't answer. He was preparing his speech for the next day, flipping through a havoc of handwritten pages, making notes here and there with a pencil. I bit into my egg and asked Papa if it was true what a boy in school had told me, that if you ate a piece of eggshell, you had to peel it out. Papa grunted again.
I took a bite of my sandwich. One of the yellow-haired tourists laughed and slapped the other one on the back. In the distance, across the lake, a track lumbered around the corner on the hill. Sunlight twinkled in its side view mirror.
Outside the orphanage the next day, they ran out of chairs. A lot of people had to stand to watch the opening ceremony. It was a windy day and I sat behind on the little podium just outside the main entrance of the new building. Baba was wearing a green suit and a caracol hat. Midway through the speech, the wind knocked his hat off and everyone laughed. He motioned to me to hold his hat for him, and I was glad to, because then everyone would see that he was my father, my Baba. He turned back to the mic and said he had hoped the building was sturdier than his hat, and everyone laughed again. When Baba ended his speech, people stood up and cheered. They clapped for a long time. Afterward, people shook his hand. Some of them tousled my hair and shook my hand too. I was so proud of Baba, of us.
But despite Baba's successes, people were always doubting him. They told Baba that running a business wasn't in his blood, and he should study law like his father. So Baba proved them all wrong by not only running his own business, but becoming one of the richest merchants in Kabul. Baba and Rahim Khan built a wildly successful carpet exporting business, 2 pharmacies, and a restaurant.
When people scoffed that Baba would never marry well after all, he was not of royal blood who wedded my mother, Sophia Akrami, a highly educated woman universally regarded as one of Kabul's most respected, beautiful, and virtuous ladies. And not only did she teach classic Farsi literature at the university, she was a descendant of the royal family, a fact that my father playfully rubbed in the skeptics' faces by referring to her as my princess.
With me as the glaring exception, my father molded the world around him to his liking. The problem, of course, was that Baba saw the world in black and white, and he got to decide what was black and what was white. You can't love a person who lives that way without fearing him too, maybe even hating him a little.
When I was in 5th grade, we had a mullah with us about Islam. His name was Mullah Fatullah Khan, a short, stubby man with a face full of acne scars and gruff voice. He lectured us about the virtues of zakat and the duty of Hajj. He taught us the intricacies of performing the 5 daily namaz prayers and made us memorize verses from the Quran. And though he never translated the words for us, he did stress, sometimes with the help of a stripped willow branch, that we had to pronounce the Arabic words correctly so God would hear us better. He told us one day that Islam considered thinking a terrible sin. Those who drank would answer for their sin on the day of Qiyamah, Judgment Day. In those days, drinking was fairly common in Kabul. No one gave you a public lashing for it, but those Afghans who did drink did so in private, out of respect. People brought their scotch as medicine in brown paper bags from selected pharmacies. They would leave with the bag tucked out of sight, sometimes drawing furtive, disapproving glances from those who knew about the store's reputation for such transactions.
We were upstairs in Baba's study, the smoking room, when I told him that Mullah Fatullah Khan had taught us in class. Baba was pouring himself a whiskey from the bar he had built in the corner of the room. He listened, nodded, took a sip from his drink. Then he lowered himself into the leather sofa, put down his drink, and propped me up on his lap. I felt as if I were sitting on a pair of tree trunks. He took a deep breath and exhaled through his nose, the air hissing through his mustache from what seemed an eternity. I couldn't decide whether I wanted